Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled July the 12th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. I'd like to let everyone know that Mr. Gotfeldy is not with us. He is with us remotely from his home, and we are glad that he's able to join us at least in that capacity. I guess we'll have a new person. We have our new student member tonight, Alexis Schaefer. She's appointed for the school year. Alexis, welcome to the hot seat over there.
Thank you.
But we'll ask you to stand and lead us in, first of all, we'll have a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, our first item of business is to approve the agenda. So I'll take a motion to start. Motion to approve by Matthew, seconded by Jason. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Matthew. Seconded by Jason. To approve the consent agenda. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it is unanimous. Approval of the June 14th, 2022 public session minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes that need to be noted? Hearing none, take a motion to adopt those minutes. Motion, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor of the minutes adoption, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it is unanimous. Closed session summaries and announcements for the superintendent.
All right, thank you. The Board of Education met in executive session on Tuesday, June 14, 2022 at 4:03 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following items. Review executive session minutes, personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1, and administrative function topics. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to go into executive session, and Matthew Fox seconded the motion. Final resolution, motion carried with yea votes from Rodney Gotfelty, Matthew Paul, Monica Rinker, and Jason Van Sickle. Mr. Wood stated that administrative coaches under administrative function was removed from the agenda. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to approve the executive session agenda as revised, and Matthew Paul seconded the motion. Thereafter, the board voted to approve the revised agenda with a yea vote from Rodney Gotfelty, Matthew Paul, Monica Rinker, and Jason Van Sickle. Executive session minutes, Jason Van Sickle made a motion to approve the May 10th, 2022 executive session minutes, and Rodney Gotfelty seconded the motion. Final resolution, motion carried with yea votes from Rodney Gotfelty, Matthew Paul, Monica Rinker, and Jason Van Sickle. Personnel, professional leave request. Ms. Barbara Baker, Superintendent, presented a professional leave request to the board for a staff member to attend Power School University in Boston, Massachusetts in July. Matthew Paul made a motion to approve the professional leave request. Jason Van Sickle seconded the motion. The board unanimously approved the motion with a yea vote from Rodney Gotfelty, Matthew Paul, Monica Rinker, and Jason Van Sickle. Certificated staffing recommendations. Dr. Willison shared certificated staff recommendations to the board for their review. Dr. Willison answered various questions regarding the candidates. The board took action on the staffing recommendations in the public session under the consent agenda. Substitute teacher contract concern. Dr. Willison discussed the concern addressed by a substitute teacher regarding her contract. Dr. Willison, Mrs. Schweitzer answered various questions from the board. The board did not take action on this topic. The board superintendent evaluation. The board discussed plans for the superintendent evaluation meeting. The board did not take action on this topic. Administrative function. The board discussed various administrative function topics. The board considered these topics but did not take any action on these items. Adjournment, Jason Van Sickle made a motion to adjourn the executive session, and Matthew Paul seconded the motion. Motion carried with yea votes for Monica Rinker, Rodney Gotfelty, Matthew Paul, and Jason Van Sickle. Executive session ended at 6:05 p.m. Mr. Tom Woods, Board President, Mr. Rodney Glockelty, Board Vice President, and Board members Dr. Matthew Paw, Ms. Monica Reeker, and Mr. Jason Van Sickle. Board members at the meeting, Mrs. Barbara Baker, Superintendent, and Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, attended all or part of the meeting via conference phone. Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Allison Schweitzer, Director of Finance, Mr. Rich Wazlowski, Director of Maintenance, Facilities, Operations, Transportation, and Ms. Karen Brewer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, attended all or part of the meeting. Now for announcements. This week, July 11th through the 14th, and next week, July 18th through the 21st, will be summer programming at the elementary and middle school at each location of elementary except for Yacht Glades, which will be held at Broadford. And we did have an announcement to please watch for buses. They are running during these 2 weeks, and our students will be entering and exiting the bus, so please watch out for them. On July 21st, the May Board Service Academy, the Blueprint and Reimagining College Readiness, NCTE, will be held virtually from 9:30 to 12:30 p.m. August 4th, May, new student board member orientation will be held virtually from 9:30 to 2:30 p.m. August 17th, 18th, 22nd through the 25th, our best class for new teachers will be held at Broadford Elementary School from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. August 23rd will be another May Board Service Academy on the Open Meetings Act, will be held virtually from 9:30 to 12:30. September 1st will be the Garrett County Public Schools reunion meeting. The location will be determined. And October 6th through the 8th is the annual MAVE conference held again at the Westin in Annapolis Hotel. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have, I think, one young lady here tonight for us to honor her with her name. And, I'll ask Ms. Rinker to do that.
We would like to recognize Ms. Chloe Campbell, an 8th grade student, Southern Middle, and this is her self-portrait that she did. That was purchased to be on display here at the central office.
How long did it take you to do that?
Chloe, why don't you tell us who's here with you?
My aunt Jackie Ray and Ms.
Thank you both of you.
Ms. Ashley, would you like to share how they come to deciding,
Well, there's like a team that day at the Fine Arts Fair, and we did take a little team and we asked them which ones that are in the top choices, and then we pick from there. We involved some people from our cabinet as well to help choose. Amazing artwork, though, very amazing, all of them, but the two that we chose, just extraordinary.
And I was telling Mr. Woods earlier, we don't always purchase two, but since we missed an in-person arts fair 2 years in a row, that's why this year we'll able to purchase two, and you'll be getting a check this evening for your wonderful artwork.
yeah.
You're gonna get a photo?
Yeah, want to get a photo of you?
And then you see in your certificate.
You want to hold the artwork up there too?
Let us in the picture too. Where do you want
Usually, where do you wanna?
Not really in front of the TV. but-
Yeah.
Should your art teacher in there?
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, why don't you get in the middle?
Let's get your art teacher in there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's the
Come on.
person behind the.
Perfect.
Right? I know. One, two, three.
So hard.
There's another one here. One.
Dr. Paul, did you want to, yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah, so, we have another, outstanding accomplishment for Ariella Morrow. And will you tell me what school? I don't know.
It's Northern High School.
Northern High School.
This was his.
Yeah, so this is the art, and this is Northern High School. So that was our second, one for the student art selection.
And we'll make sure, we'll go down and make sure we get a nice picture when we, find a way to get to it, and we'll, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Oh, yeah, sure, you can stay as long as you want.
Congratulations.
Okay, we're gonna move down to new business. And we're gonna do the solid waste collection disposal services bid first. To get that out of the way, in case there are questions about the education facilities master plan. So Superintendent Baker, will you give me a recommendation first?
Okay, we had, vendor, Perry Solid Waste Disposal, for the solid waste collection disposal services, their local firm in Gary County.
So your recommendation is to accept Perry's solid waste disposal? Okay, she has a amended recommendation
Should
is,
have the bid
is there-
calculation sheet.
yeah, I think they're in the folders. That is her recommendation, is there a motion as such?
I make a motion.
Motion by Matthew to accept Superintendent's recommendation, need a second?
Second.
Second by Rodney, we can now have discussion. So any discussion concerning the bid, action tonight? I think we had the bid tabulations in our folders. No questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor, do second. Those in favor of accepting Perry as our, this year's, solid waste collection disposal service, provider, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it's 4-0.
Thank you.
Our second, part of new business is education facilities master plan. Be presented by the superintendent as Mr. Wazlowski is on vacation.
All right, so before you, you have the updated educational facilities master plan for 22-23. Accompanying the educational facilities master plan, is a list of the key changes that are in the plan, and, all changes are, in red for your review. And it is a first read for adoption next month.
Mr. Wazlowski will be here next month.
He will be here to present the, approval, yes.
Answer any questions we have for him. And Monica.
When you look at, we open up page 3, Associated for these states still has monitoring for his vice president. That'll have to be changed. I have several questions, but I guess I should wait for some of them.
Well, if they're technical
Right.
questions, you probably don't have to, just so that
You probably want the
Correct answer.
emails before.
Yeah, you
Right,
might-
we didn't receive any in advance, so I wasn't sure what in addition I needed to prepare for, so, other than the change, so in red, I can certainly, yes.
Is there any other
Well, this one, I think,
correction
it
there?
looks
Mr.
like,
Saul?
when you look at it,
Mhm. Which
on
one?
page 25,
25.
it's on Broadford Elementary.
Mhm.
It looks like you have your total category down to the bottom, weighing factor, total X weighing. It looks like the bottom number should be brought down, like I looked before, and maybe a lot of them were the same as last year, but when you look at very good, total X weighing, like it says 0, like a lot of them have like 4, or last year, like the 85 was brought down. I'm not sure if it needs to be or not, but when I compared it, like everything on this chart, like the numbers are the same, like if you look at last year, like where we have 0, I wonder if that should be an 85, not a 0.
My guess is you're correct.
That's what it looked like before. Okay. Okay, like on page 57, you look at grades, it says 6, 8. Like northern middle, 6, 7, and 8. So either I think we should put like the hyphen in between 6 to the 8, or put 6, 7, 8. Like, you know what I mean? I just think it's like a
We need to do something a little different.
It has a 6, a space, and an 8.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Drinker, where are you?
Page
Page
57 at the top,
Right here.
under
First column.
grades.
Oh,
It's
okay.
6-8.
I think, gotcha.
6-8 or 6-7-8.
And I think Southern Middle might have been changed too.
That's what I was trying to catch, so.
Yes, like it just
Yeah, it does.
didn't
It
look.
does, it's,
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, when you look at page 87, these are ones that I think are just minor, not so much questions on the process. Yes, and then compare it to page 69.
Okay. I'm on page 87. What's the question?
Okay. We have, okay, you look at 69, state rated. I was on page 69.
it's Southern High.
Yeah, I know, so I had, okay, wait,
Well, on page 87, there isn't a 69, it's under Swan Meadow.
yes, okay, but what it is, I must know what it is, but when you look at the other Swan Meadow, the state rated capacity, we have a different number. Our numbers, I believe, were not, the same.
Okay.
I will have them check that.
Yeah. Oh, Swan Meadow,
Because this capacity lists
Yeah.
as of 9/30/21, so I just,
Oh, on-
I'm not sure where,
page 48, theirs has state rated capacity as 91,
okay.
Swan Meadow.
I know what, okay. I
So
know.
we need to make it consistent, it should be 69, correct? On page
I
48.
believe so, yes. We will make sure they're, unless it's based on different dates, but I don't think it is now that you say that. I will make sure they're the same.
Well, the other ones were all the same, for the other schools.
Okay.
These two are out of order. Page numbers are out of order.
Yeah, that was something else, you're right, they are.
There's a page 39 should follow page. It goes from 38 to 42.
But mine's a little bit different.
And then his goes from, yeah, his is correct there. It
So
goes,
you took all these small parts of PDF that might.
I think what it is Hickory is,
That might have been what happened.
it's just Hickory was after Grantsville.
Okay.
And so the way the pages go,
Mine goes 38 to 42.
yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna make a
And then,
note.
and then on page 72, it goes to 30.
I'll check it for
Alright.
consistency.
Mine goes from 48 to 72.
In order and then in page numbers. That's
yours is
there.
different, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
On page 100, I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, we stated April 30th, 2021, should it say 2022 instead of 2021 on this? Page 100?
Not if that is the, you mean at the top, the letter dated April 30th?
Yes, I didn't know if we should have a more current one for.
No, I think what that is saying is that this was the projected enrollment that we received from the Maryland Department of Planning at that time.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
if you look at the end, I'm sorry, if you look at the next last paragraph, it asks for reply before May 14th, 2021.
Right. So these were this was,
Okay.
in the year 2021, these were the projections, and that's what that's referring to.
Okay, so we didn't have a different one?
No.
Then.
If there is another one, we'll put it in, but I don't think so. But this one is correct.
Okay. My next question, page 103. Normally, I thought, would we have 2021 enrollment on there, or just the 2020? I know it says.
Well, if you look at the headline, it has historical enrollment
Yeah.
from the last 10 years.
Okay.
And again, it's data prepared with the Maryland Department of Planning. Then if you go to the next page, it goes 21 to 30. So it's there, it's just on the next page.
And I do know one thing that I did not see in here unless I overlooked it. All the other education facilities master plan ahead, we have our enrollment, like page 87, here's the state rate capacity and state enrollment. Normally, we have in here one on each school. Now, normally the school, we have each grade level. So are we omitting putting that in here now, or we just, that was an overlook? I did not see it.
And it's not listed in the changes that he outlined. Is it, what appendices is it? Because he does indicate that we have not received.
I guess it was enrollment.
If you look at, I'm looking at Southern High School, it talks about state rated capacity, being 1450. The FY 20 fall enrollment was 675, percentage utilization 47. So it's giving that information through FY 20. So we certainly have more updated.
But normally, this is what I had last year. It has a sheet, and it says it gives the school, the number for each grade,
Right.
and it said as of September 30, 20, it'd be September 30, 2021. And we've always had them for every school showing, and then break down the grade. So I don't know if that's something that,
Well, those need to be updated too, the columns. The columns are using FY 20 enrollment. We've got current enrollment numbers of that. All those need to be changed. I'm sure they're all.
what page is that? What page?
Well,
Well,
it's
I
on
was
each
using
school.
Southern
It's on
69,
each
but I
school.
guess it's on every school.
I have it marked, and noted. Because it does.
And Northern doesn't say, no, Northern has FY 21.
Okay. So that
If you look at Northern, it's FY 20, yeah. If you look at Southern, it's FY 20.
typo, or it could be just they didn't
But
update
it's,
that.
yeah, they didn't update, it's wrong, it's the wrong numbers.
Got it.
Anything else, Mike?
The other things are questions I'll specifically ask for it. Those were just like typo or things I think might have got omitted or
Mhm.
that I thought was pretty self-explanatory.
What we'll do is, change all of the corrections, make the additions, and then get this back out to you.
Okay.
And then, as Dr. Claus said, since it will be up for action next month, if we could have the questions, that are technical and if you have questions about each building specifically, since it is for action, if we could have those in advance, that would be very helpful. And I will change that, I hope.
Yeah.
Very good.
I guess I did have one more question, and maybe it should be changed on page 80, it says Garrett County, Maryland employment. This is for the calendar year 2019. Would you think we at least have 2020 to put in here? Or not?
We should.
Well, if you look at the notes, where on the memo, that's one of the appendices, A, B, C, and D. So this one's B. Our last year's data provided by county government, the updated information has been requested and will be added as soon as it's received.
Okay.
All those would need to be checked for, because I'm looking at.
Right, yeah, I've made
Now,
it.
they're around 40 in FY 22
Yeah.
numbers.
I've made a note to check everything.
That's all those, all
Yeah.
those need updated.
Okay.
Anything else? Anyone? Monica, you okay?
Yeah, now this,
You have a statement for staff, for technical questions.
it's just more explaining things,
Sure.
not,
Yeah.
so I mean, I can do it at the next board meeting.
Yeah, we need to,
I do like the schools in color, that does make it
Yeah.
change
ready.
some.
Yeah, I think that some of the updates are well done.
Just, yeah, let's do that. Okay, all right, that was, a first read on those, and I don't know, it's not 7 o'clock yet,
You know, we can
but,
do that.
I don't know if we've gotten any public comment. Just want to see if anybody signed up about it.
Probably do
Yeah, we can, yeah, we can do, yeah, whatever.
I do, I want, yeah. Does that work?
Yeah, sure.
Since we have half an hour left.
No one's out there?
We'll check in 7. Okay, let's move on to the ethics policy. This
Okay.
is an action item for tonight.
Yes, and I am presenting this one as well, as Dr. Wildenson is also out this week. This ethics policy is up for action this evening. And as I believe you're aware, the ethics policy is one that is approved. And our ethics policy, as it's presented to you this evening for action, has received the approval that is required.
Okay, so Superintendent's asking for approval of the ethics policy as a motion as such. So Mr. Matthew, Jason. Discussion about the ethics policy, that's going before the ethics policy review committee, and it is state template that we're following. So are there any particular questions, corrections, additions?
It's already been reviewed by the state.
And approved.
Yeah, so there's not really much.
No,
Right,
not much.
it follows all the guidelines that what we have to have in there.
Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the BC ethics policy, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it is unanimous.
Thank you.
We'll go down to the document-based questions, DBQ supplemental social studies curriculum. This is an action item tonight as well. We're going to skip the superintendent's part for a while. Come back to that and let you ladies present, and then something
Well,
else.
it might go past 7, so this is a good time.
See what happens. Okay, so this is a action item. Superintendent, do you want to make a recommendation?
Yes, Mrs. Moss is here to present DPQ, document-based questions, and my recommendation is to approve the supplemental social studies materials.
Okay, superintendent's recommending we accept the document-based supplemental social studies curriculum. Is there a motion as such?
So moved.
So moved by Rodney.
You got it?
Second by Matthew. Thank you, Rodney. We can now have presentation with any discussion, questions you might have.
So this was brought before you last month with all of the topics that were included. We've only had one comment that was written, and it was positive. And it is supplemental for our teachers until we can move forward with a full social studies program through the Maryland Leads Grant. Any questions?
Any questions? I thought all the elements of that were outstanding, really did. I mean, there's some very nice questions to ask from elementary all the way to high school. I listened to the lady's presentation, press on and listen to one of the owners. Yes, of the company. Yes, involved.
It's a very small company, and the owners are very hands-on with it.
She knew it inside out.
She answered my questions last month, and right now it's only for elementary, correct? That's what we're doing.
Secondary already has it in place. So this, what you're presenting tonight is just the elementary component.
Any questions? Okay, we got a motion on the floor to accept the document-based questions supplemental social studies curriculum. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it is
All
unanimous.
right, thank you.
Thank
Mrs.
you
Moss.
very
Thank
much.
you.
3 cheers for the pre-K curriculum. This is also an action item. Get it parade. Superintendent Baker, you have a recommendation.
Yes, Mrs. Ashby is here to present 3 tiers for pre-K curriculum for the action this evening, and I do recommend that we approve this proposed curriculum. I believe we did receive a couple of comments on it as well, and so I believe they were positive. And so my recommendation is to approve this supplemental material.
Okay, superintendent's make a recommendation to approve 3 cheers pre-K curriculum. Is there a motion? Motion by Monica, second by Matthew. Any parting comments before we vote?
I know the teachers will be very grateful, so thank you. It's a common curriculum they can now use for 3 and 4-year-olds, so thank you very much.
Any questions? That's good.
She answered last month, and I do believe it was grant funded also.
Right, that is correct.
Could have used that yet.
That's right.
Okay, hearing none, there's a motion on the floor to adopt the 3 cheers pre-K curriculum. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it is unanimous. Thank you.
And I believe we also had one comment on that too.
Yes, she
Yes,
indicated
actually,
two of them, actually. And now we're going to go to the end of the year English Language Arts Math Assessment results.
Right back up.
Right back up.
All right. Need a clicker?
Yeah, give me just a second to get, make sure Rodney can see.
I am back from, I believe it was my March presentation with the updates for the school year. We are continuing to focus on Mrs. Baker's request for not just data, but to have strategies to address the issues that we're facing and really looking at the recovery effort and what we need to do. So this is her vision that we'll be presenting on and the results thereof and where we're headed, trying to address some of the learning loss, but also spending a little time celebrating what we've been able to do. There we go. So with ELA, it was still the same 3 areas of focus, working primarily on coaching, really providing rich and robust training for the knowledge and practices of the science of reading, which is the letters training. It's also a portion of MZ, which is the IMSC programs that we use at the elementary level, and making sure that we're using evidence-based curriculum across the board. With the coaching, we have some results to share with you that we ask the staff and those that are working with them to respond on. I do want to tell you that the results from February that I reported on were only those teachers who are receiving coaching. The May results include everyone, as we're establishing a baseline for Maryland leads. So when we go to look at that, we'll see a variance slightly in the results, moving to an 88% of the population that was polled finding it to be helpful. In that 11%, some of them didn't receive coaching, so it's kind of difficult to say that it's helpful when you haven't had the experience. When we ask, would you ask for the coach support again if needed in the future, 92.8% said yes, they would, which I thought was very reassuring for our coaches to know that they're having an impact on our teachers. And then, I'm not sure why this is not working right.
Point it over here.
Oh, over there, I'm pointing the wrong way. Thank you. Now we went too far. Hey, I'm getting really good at this. Too bad. There we go. And would you recommend to other people? The answer again was 89%, almost 90% said that they would recommend. When we asked for what the feedback would be on coaching and asking for input from the staff, they found the most helpful strategies to be the model lessons that the coaches were delivering using the resources that we have, support in lesson planning and data analysis, and using the newer resources that we've implemented, as well as just on-the-spot questions and being able to support them in the moment when they ask. When we asked what they would also like, of course, they want to continue to learn the new curricular resources through Maryland Lead. We'll be providing some extra pieces that are supplemental with what they already have, but adding capacity like the toolkit that they use for intervention, so they want trained with that. They want to continue with the modeled lessons and the pacing of those lessons. And the big one is writing and grammar. When we ask specifically for what they want for professional development, they ask for writing, some training on a program called School Pace, which we've purchased for them to record the reading progress of our students through the American Reading Company, as well as some of the core lessons. That support, thankfully, will be coming through the grant through the American Reading Company. And there we go. When we looked at how they were doing with the implementation of the American Reading Company program and looking at the fidelity, again, the baseline at the bottom with the fall and later the December report is going to be with specific teachers receiving the support. The top is all teachers, and we're looking at the fidelity of their program. How well are they doing it and implementing it? And you can see when we look at everyone, we see a slight decrease in that fidelity, which tells me that now we need to expand and to extend to the identified areas of need. We're also going to be extending to the secondary level too, changing that model slightly to mirror what's happening at the elementary level to support those teachers. So once we've implemented those programs, how are we doing overall? Now there are a lot of slides. Mrs. Baker has joked with me that maybe I've tried to outpace her number of slides, but just so that you can see the grade level breakdown. The big picture here is that most grades are making progress, but we're still in recovery. Attendance matters. And when students in grades 1 and 2 aren't showing quite the performance that we want, We also know that the foundational skills are the reason for that. Our older students are outperforming, outpacing in the results because they received the foundational skills. And without that, we still have some recovery to do with those grade levels. So we know how much attendance impacts. When we go through, you can see specifically all of the different grade levels. What you're looking for in each of these slides is for the red line to be decreasing on the top and for the purple and green lines to be increasing, and you'll see the grade levels that where that is occurring is really more in the older grades. Having a focus on the younger grades brings us to that foundational program that we use with IMSE, the IMSE-OG, that you've heard me speak about before. And what we're seeing is that we're making the growth. We're seeing the lines increase. This is where we're at here at the end of the year. We've got kindergarten. Now there's a slight decrease in the kindergarten skills, just simply because kindergarten's assessment changes at the end of the year, so you'll see it drop to 63%. That's simply because it's now an application. It's no longer just letters and sounds and identification and recognition, but it's actually putting the words into play and actually spelling. But first grade, we're seeing an increase from 15 to 49%, and in second grade, 12 to 57%. And those assessments keep increasing in rigor as we go through the school year. So what you test on at the beginning of the year is really the grade before. What you test on at the end of the year is the entire curriculum and foundational skills. So we are making progress. And my final one is ARC School PACE, which looks at the reading levels of those individual children and where they're at in their programs. The emergency, of course, is the red, the yellow means they're at risk, and the green is making the progress and on grade level where we would like them to be. Again, you're going to see the same similar trend. The younger grades are struggling more than the older grades. Any questions on this information? Yes, sir.
Question actually for you and Mr. Shelp, actually, whenever he presents later, is can this data be broken down by school and class size? How granular can you get with your data?
Well, next year, a lot more than I can this year, because this is the year that we're retiring the program where I get a spreadsheet with 3,000 odd amount of students on it. I manually have to go in by each subgroup, each grade level, each school. So I don't take the time to do the school. The schools have that in their school improvement plans. They actually get that data from the program. At the district level, I do not. So that data could be extracted from their school improvement plans, and that would be more helpful. Mr. Schultz has a much nicer program that we're graduating to next year, and I'm going to celebrate.
And we can pull by grade level, school, demographic group.
Because I think when we got this data earlier, we asked to be broken down by school the first time we received it, but we don't think we've received that yet.
Ronnie actually asked for that.
My other question, I guess, would be, as we look at these programs and we want our teachers to include them, question for the superintendent is, are we including those in either their evaluation process or their goal-setting process at the beginning of the year?
Both.
Okay.
There's the school improvement plan, and we just completed the round of principal evaluation. The school improvement plan and setting their goal for their SLO, their learning objectives, are all included in their final tally of their evaluation. School improvement plan is one piece that is always reviewed throughout the
So
year.
do we
and
use
then
the data of the teachers that are using the coaching to compare to that?
Say that question.
Or there's a disconnect? Well, we have data as far as the teachers that are
Right.
using it as a coaching tool, right? My question is, to put it in an evaluation form is one thing, to actually prove that they were actually coached to the system is another. Are you comparing those two data points as we move forward in the evaluation process?
We have not as far as that granular.
Because if we're asking them to do it, the only way you can mark
Right.
and achieve would be to actually follow up to see if they did actually do it. So I guess as we move through this evaluation process, we've talked to a board as we look at our school, is that can we include some of those things now that we have data to provide us?
And if I may, we are currently revamping the tool. If you're talking about the fidelity tool, that is part of the Maryland Leads grant as well. And we are going to be pushing out, Mrs. Gregory is working with me, and we'll be asking not only the coaches to do some of the fidelity checks, with the administrators as well, and that tool will send feedback immediately to the teacher. Now, the issue with a walkthrough tool, for what you're specifically asking, is that coaches are not used for evaluation purposes, so therefore that tool cannot be used as part of the evaluation. It's a give and take between the teacher and the coach.
Right.
What the principal does with the overall results is a different tool. So what you're asking for here has been addressed previously by the union, and because it's in a coaching situation, it presents a different dynamic than just pure evaluation purposes.
Right, but if we're asking them to use a resource that right now is covered by a grant that may sometime be asked for funding in the future, then if I'm gonna spend money for a resource, I want my employees to use it, whether they be private sector or school system. So that's where I'm kind of getting at, is that eventually grants will run out and we will be asked to, especially if they're successful, and I think what we're seeing is that they're gonna be successful, to replace those funds. And if I'm gonna spend the money, I wanna make sure people are using it.
Oh, we're definitely looking at that. That is part of, what gets monitored gets done.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thought behind it, and with the initial feedback from the coach, allowing the teacher to see the feedback, that opens the door for that discussion and then increased performance.
Yeah.
And then we'll see the difference in some of these tools like School Pace.
And I think we could still keep that coaching model that is not evaluative when the coach goes into work with the
Sure.
teacher. But what we could do is, just as you said, that next step is comparing who's using it with fidelity. Are they seeing the results that we expect them to see? Without making the actual coaching process evaluative.
Sure.
Which makes sense.
Other questions?
I kind of do. Like,
I
when
got
you look at that,
one question.
Monica, a couple questions, Rodney, can you hold for just 1 second?
Are you looking at School Pace? The one that's currently displayed?
yeah, when you look at, like, the red is emergency, yellow is at risk, green is on target. So when you're saying emergent, that means they're a little bit lower than where they should be, and
So if you look at that large component under kindergarten, one of the issues we're having with this is it requires them to know a specific number of sight words in order to move on. And so they are working on what we call power words, but with the recovery effort and bringing students in and the absenteeism that we had in the fall with the quarantining, it had a huge impact on our youngest learners. And again, we're seeing this exhibited in this data because they you need them in front of you
right.
in order to work on the orthographic mapping, which is the recognition of the words that has to occur. There's a whole scientific process behind what has to happen, and it's not as easy to do through a screen or a piece of paper.
I agree. So I guess when I look at, like, it is concerning, like,
Mhm.
the red wasn't as big, but
I know.
yes, we're moving forward to, fix it, and there's many factors. But when you look at the beginning of one of your presentations, like, I don't know, third page, it says, strategy to support learning in English language arts. One, strategy one is coaching, which to me, that's with the teacher. Strategy two, provide a rich and robust training in the knowledge and practices of the science of reading, which again, that is a teacher. Your strategy three, using vetted, evidence-based curriculum. So that, I know, can kind of follow the student and the teacher. So I guess what, I just question, I look at it, is a lot of our teachers are seasoned teachers. They've been around for a long time, so they really know what they're doing, the teaching and so I guess part of it concerns me is maybe it is the students, maybe, takes some longer to grasp the learning, we're teaching differently, you know what I mean? So I guess my question is there any other way, or, do you do tutoring? What ways to get students up to where they need to be? Because, like, how it is now compared to, say, 15 years ago. When kids started kindergarten, like, you didn't want to know how to tie their shoe, you didn't want to know their ABCs and their columns. That was the teacher's job. Things have changed. They come to school, they already need to know all of this. You put in the factors. You don't know their home life, might have one parent, parents are working, there's all different factors. Yes.
So what I would tell you with that, and this is heavily researched, You're correct. There are always contributing factors that impact the learning of a student. However, if the teacher is doing the program with fidelity and providing the direct instruction in the correct manner and engaging those students, and if we are providing the social emotional learning that needs to occur, the executive function, which is the way a child organizes their thought, then you get the student engaged. And as soon as you engage the students in a vetted curriculum that is proven through research to work, you'll create the learning. Now, having said that, think about September. We brought students back from a time when they were away from human beings for almost 2 years at a 5-year-old level, just looking at the kindergarten skills, not knowing how to interact, let alone be in a social setting with masks on 6 feet away. And then we tried to make them feel safe and present a curriculum. And when you present that curriculum, and by the way, last week you were put out for 14 days, next week your brother got it, so you're out again.
Right.
It has its impact. So without being, and these are fairly new programs, ARC was brought in during the pandemic. So our teachers have not had enough time. We're calling this year a major reset, where we're bringing in the ARC coaches, not just our coaches, but the company itself, and really working with teachers on what does this look like in person and how should we be teaching it, because their training was done virtually on their Wednesdays when they were trying to get all of their work done. So it is a conflict at that time, given what they were faced with. And not only that, the teachers were having some concerns about what was going on with their students and the pandemic and their families. So we've got to, this is part of why this is the focus of our major recovery. Because yeah, 15 years ago, things looked differently. We've now had as much research in education as we have in the medical field, because we're joining all of those areas of research and saying, let's look at their social emotional needs, let's look at their physical needs, let's look at what it takes for the brain to process and do reading, and all that research is now coming together in the science of reading, and guess who was left out? All of the teachers and all of the training that we've done. It's only been in the more recent years that this has come about. So now we have, when I say a major reset, it's not just a reset of students learning school. It's teachers now knowing exactly what we've said before. When we know better, we do better. And now we know better, and we're working on the do better. And that's why when you look at what our strategies are, I was charged with, let's build the structure that we need. When we get the students, we can provide the instruction that we know is best practice. Does that make sense?
It does. And it all makes sense you said, but there's something else too that I think possibly might be a factor, could be. Sometimes you have behavior issues in the classroom. And the teachers do what they're supposed to do, but in my mind, if you have disruptive behavior, it could be different children, different days, having a bad day. That takes away from that time that that teacher has in that block dedicated to teach. So I think that could be a factor. And I also wonder, I mean, yes, I know we had COVID and that impacted it, you say new curriculum, but if you even look a couple years back, we've had some areas of same kinds of low, or scores compared to what they was, like Mr. Woods said before, many, many years ago. And I feel that elementary sets it for the kids. Like, that's where you get the basics of your reading, your writing, your math, the fundamentals. Sometimes I wonder if a student doesn't get it in a time frame. Like, I know we do not retain children, hold them back, and I know they said part of it's social, emotional, all different reasons. But I sometimes wonder if we didn't, if it might not help a child. Like, if you didn't get it, if you did it again, then maybe it's almost like, you know, every year you teach them something different. You build on the basics of what they learned. So my concern is if they skip, like I've said before, they get A to C and they skip D to F and we're teaching G, they're lost. Like, could that even be a factor that they didn't understand a part, even though you've taught and you've repetitious and something, they just didn't understand it. So they're missing a big section of it, and you go into the next grade. Well, how can you do this when you're missing part of it? Like, that's just my thought.
No, and that's a good thought, because that's where the response to intervention comes in. And so that's why we've spent exponential dollars on bringing in the tutors and all the extra support. That's why we're bringing in these intervention toolkits, because they are specifically laid out. If this is the skill that is missing, here is the specific lesson that the teacher can go to with the resources. Currently, we only have one per building. Now imagine one per building in the size of Broadford. We're buying one per teacher, so that everyone has the tools that they need to address exactly what you're talking about.
But is there enough time in the class, you know what I mean, because you're already accountable for doing this much.
And Mrs. Ashby is working with a team currently, as well as Mr. Schultz and I, to look at, and that was one of the requests that our teachers have. How do you make it fit? So we've worked this summer with teachers, not us dictating, but working with teachers saying, how did you make it fit? Our lead teachers are the ones that are putting this together for presentation for the teachers when they return, in hopes that that will support them in their product and the way that they deliver and manage, because that is a struggle. You're exactly right. I've always said we need more time. What we have to do is use our time efficiently and effectively, using the best strategies, which is why our strategies address more of the direct instruction through the teacher right now than the student, because that's what I can manage. I can't choose who comes before me. We're a public system. What I can choose is how to best prepare our teachers for every scenario that we get. And that's what our goal is.
And I'm just gonna add to, support my partner in crime here, that you just approved a pre-K curriculum tonight, which, we all lived through a process where kindergarten was your beginning point. That was your start point. And now,
See, everything I need to learn in life, I learned in kindergarten.
there is an argument.
I've heard that for 35 years.
There is an argument for that. But, right now, we're approving a common, updated pre-K curriculum, which has not been out there. And 3 and 4-year-olds are going to get some of the structural stuff that you're talking about when it relates back to behaviors and learning how to come to school and be prepared to learn. And you see that in the blueprint. It's an entire pillar.
Yeah.
That universal pre-K is now going to be accessible to every student in the state of Maryland. So this is not just a Garrett County issue about school readiness. It's a statewide issue. And I think with those two pieces now being in place in our district, and when this kindergarten data should be supported by that a cycle or two from now. So.
You said universal pre-K to all 4-year-olds, what you said?
Well, it's part of the pillar to get that implemented.
Right, but we only have so many spots though, correct?
Well, but for the last several years, we have been able to place anyone that was interested. So if you were asked, have we provided that? We have. Not every school has a slot, so your slot, that you may be offered at a different school, but we have, in the past several years, using a combination of grant money, operating funds, we have been able to be considered as universal pre-K, that every child that wanted a slot had one. What would be even better is if it were like kindergarten, where that was your first year of school, and that's not the case, but maybe it will be at some point. So, and also just want to just correct you just briefly. There is no policy that we never retain a child. We do, in very, 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 conditions have to be met, and we have to have a plan for what that child would get differently instead of just more of the same. And it is used very sparingly, because, then they do go through as an older child, and that can affect them. But it's not a policy that we never do it. We will, but it has to meet a, very strict situation, we feel for the child.
Just less than what it was 15 years ago.
I would say that's probably fair.
I mean, from seeing it, from having kids in the
Yeah.
school system.
Yeah.
Yes. I think Rodney has some questions. Sorry, Rodney.
I just have a simple question. I mean, you're measuring reading inventory progress. Can you give me a definition of reading inventory?
Oh, reading inventory is the universal screener that we were using. Primarily, it was measuring vocabulary, context clues, meaning can you take the word from the sentence and figure out what it means, and a little bit of comprehension, which is part of why we are changing that screener, because we really need to look more closely at the foundational skills based on what we're seeing in the data and be able to give the teachers better information to use.
Okay, because the scores look, especially when you look at some of the grade 4, grade 5, seems to be you know, for both beginning, mid-year, and end of year, looks pretty high to me. You know, I'm not sure how, if you could put that in a historical context. You know, what it would have been 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I understand that the pandemic caused a lot of these problems, but I just would like a little historical insight. And I think Monica mentioned that too.
As far as raw data, I don't have the district historical data for that. We could probably pull that from some of our plans in the previous years. All I have access to right now is the current year data. We could look at MCAP as well and see the variance in that. But I don't know that I have HMH per se, this reading inventory piece itself.
Yeah, well, the question is, are we measuring something different today than we were measuring 5 years ago?
Yes, and as we progress, even in the 2000s, they did the national study and they talked about phonological awareness, which is your ability to hear the sounds, and the need for phonics. And here we sit in 2022 saying our assessment needs to measure that. Our teachers need trained on that. And I'm doing some massive training this year on phonological awareness to make sure that we hit the very foundational skills. And then the new assessment that we're bringing in, iReady, will provide our teachers with very broad information, and then we have additional tools that will narrow down into the specific areas to help us address the needs of the students.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a way to assess how many grade levels a student is behind in as you look at those that are in the emergency category? Is there a way to assess that?
iReady will. We have data that will show us.
That's all yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the tool we're moving to for that very reason. We need deeper data for us to really make the difference instructionally and hit the target.
Do you have ideas about how many? I mean, I guess it's that old thing as teachers, once you fall behind, you keep falling behind her. Pretty soon you're a giver-upper.
Which is why we brought in the OG, because a lot of those students that do the falling behind are the students who weren't getting the instruction they needed through the structured literacy approach, which means that all of those things that I've brought to you numerous years, and this year, through the ESSER grant, we're putting up phonological awareness. So if I would say to you, say blend, now say blend, but don't say you're gonna get bled. Well, we've got students out there who can't do that. So think about, if they can't hear those individual sounds, how are they ever gonna read and write and pronounce all of those? There's a lot to just the very foundational piece of what we hear and building that capacity. So that's where I always start with our students. And then from there, we start moving up. Where's the phonics relationship? Morphology is a huge part of our program. We have a phono-morphological language, which means it's not just sound-based, but the very base of the word determines the spelling and the meaning. So there's a lot of things that we've put into these foundational grades that now, I mean, the morphology program was rolled out again, ready to gear up and really push forward in March of 2020. I was going to the schools, making the visits, and it was like, well, we're gonna be closed. So we didn't get to push that out either. So I think there's a lot of teacher prep, things that were not in my program when I went through, and I know are still not there with some of the new ones that are coming through, and we're working through the research. I just listened to Emily Hanford's podcast. She's a national writer on education, And it's not really that the colleges aren't doing their job. It's that once they get to us, we have to continue that education through professional development. And I cannot emphasize enough making sure our teachers stay current, just like you want your doctors to. You don't want them using the research from 15 years ago. You want them doing what the research is telling us now with laser surgery instead of being cut open.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that the statistical information right now is skewed because of the pandemic. I mean, we all know that, you know.
But we're recovering. That's the big news. We are seeing, I mean, I know it doesn't look stellar on the screen, but our teachers are working as hard as they can. They are hitting their targets. We're going to refine some of their skills, and we're going to continue to make that progress.
Yeah, I mean, I think the proof in the pudding is a couple, 3 years down the road.
Oh,
We'll know whether it's working or not.
yes,
I
we
mean,
will.
you know, we've had that discussion about moving forward as a system in many areas, you know, we'll know in a couple, 3 years.
And historically, I'll just throw this in because I think it's an interesting data point. You know, the KRA that we give every year measures our kindergarten readiness skills. That is how they come to us, not necessarily what our kindergarten teachers do.
Right.
And Garrett County has done very well on KRA for many, many years. Our early childhood folks, we have always done very well in giving that assessment and how our students are doing. Literacy, for whatever, there's a number of reasons, but literacy historically has always been one of our loves. Our students come to us a little behind from the get-go, so that's why we've really implemented a number of things. We have, you know, we've really been concentrating on the literacy coaches. That's why we needed so badly a supervisor of English language arts. So hopefully even our readiness scores will begin to improve. So historically though, unfortunately, they're not quite as ready as they are in some of the other categories when they come to us for kindergarten. More pre-K, I think, will help.
Any other questions before I turn?
No, thank you very
Well,
much.
she'll be here while Mr. Schultz is
Yeah.
presenting.
Oh, of course. I won't miss this.
Oh, here it is.
There are no, there's
Yeah, there was no public comment, for the 7 o'clock hour, so we'll dispense with that and move on to Mr. Shelp, and he's gonna talk to us about, the math side of it.
Right, so, I was here a little bit before Ms. Moss, in the winter for an update on math strategies to address learning loss and, this is our progress so far. So this is, very familiar. These are the strategies that we implemented this year. I'm not gonna read you the full, but, it starts with the math, slide decks, the number sense routines that we implemented. We started the Math Teacher Leader Program, and through that, we developed a shell course from kindergarten to Algebra 1 for mathematics, which is now a structure that ELA will be implementing as well, and a full and efficient implementation of iReady, both the diagnostic, personal instruction, and then the tools for instruction, which are the RTI resources. So those are the examples of the slide decks. I've just cruised through them because you've seen them before. I just wanted it for reference in the PDF. So you can see the January survey data there where teachers were self-reported. They were at, on average, around slide 67. In May, they were surveyed again self-reported that the average came out to about 139. There are 180 of these slides per grade level, you know, one for each day. So I felt really good about being at 139, considering it's a brand new resource. We got off to a little bit of a slow start with it, but I think as they grew on teachers as time went on. And then the number of that, there's pretty much, you know, that's right on target, just a drop of 2 percentage points, whether or not they were completing 3 or more per week. I think that's, you know, just within the realm of, you know, same number of teachers were completing that. I do want to point out that teachers didn't have PD directly on these. This was a resource that was kind of prepackaged. I had taken it from Calvert County with a math supervisor that I kind of partnered with there. Her name is Dawn Kane. She's going to come this year to Garrett County in October and already scheduled, and she will be delivering her full professional development presentation for pre-K through grade 5 to every teacher in the county. We're going to have it in a central location and bring her up here. And then I think it helps to hear from the creator. And also she has 6 years of supporting data from her teachers in her county, much larger county, about how, how this affects scoring and performance data, and then also just their implementation data. But I think that'll really help us. And she's an exciting speaker. And I think, for not having any PD in year 1, we did a nice job, but it's a good way to kick off for year 2. And her presentation is actually being delivered at the National Council for Teaching of Mathematics regional conference in Baltimore this year. It got accepted for the pre-K and the kindergarten slides. So that also is a backup to me as far as the research behind these slides and the importance of starting these routines early. For the National Council of Teaching Mathematics to pick it up as one of their main presentations. I feel good about that. And we're going to bring her here because we obviously can't send everyone there. Okay. So these were the math teacher leaders this year in the 21-22 school year. They're highlighted in blue here. I just wanted to give them a shout out. They did a great job. They basically created a position, or shouldn't say a position. They created a responsibility factor in Garrett County schools by becoming a teacher leader and demonstrating, how to set these shell courses up, how to message with other teachers, and how to show leadership from the classroom level to your peers. We're going to only have 2 changes this year, and they're both related to really solid instructional decisions. Heather Sanders is going to move over and be an ELA teacher leader for grade 4, I believe. And Amanda Main from Crellin did an excellent job this year at grade 2, but wrote to me early on and said she's going to have a very large class next year, and she knows that they have some specific needs, and she feels like her time would be dedicated focusing on them. So Shayna Roten from Grantsville, I finally convinced to jump in the mix here, and she's a great teacher and would be a perfect replacement there. So this is survey data, again, collected in regards to the shell course and the relationship with the math teacher leaders. So visiting data, a little higher in the January survey when I surveyed in May. I think I can relate that to a couple things. A couple people felt like they were maybe out in front of the pace of the course, so then you visit a little bit less. The folks that report not at all, that's a personal choice, right? So it wasn't a mandatory visit to the shell course on a weekly basis. I think if you look at the pacing comparison in the data, that kind of backs up what I just said. 68% of the teachers reported that they were with or ahead of the pacing. So I think that's where the visiting on a whole, like on a weekly basis, probably diminished a little bit, because if you get out in front of it, the resources weren't posted. I do have a little bit of problem with the May data with the K-5 teachers, the completion of the overall topics. I would like to see the completion of the core topics in our core curriculum. I would like to see the between 10 to 14 number a little higher. I'd like to see that more around 70%, and then maybe a 30% split between the other 2 levels. That would make me feel a little bit better, that we would be more clustered up around the same number. Because, if you're on the same grade level in the county and one teacher in one location is finishing 14 topics and a teacher in another location is finishing less than 10, I have a pretty good feeling that, those students in the classroom where you're finishing less than 10, they're going to be behind the other cohort. So I'd like to see us get a little closer together in our pacing, and most people finishing like the same number of topics. And that's going to be a focus for me in here too.
Sorry, have you there a correlation between the 22% that never attended a shell course, to look into what the teachers were doing and their overall results, overall placement results of the students that they taught?
Not that I can see clearly right now, because sometimes that is a veteran teacher that had a full handle on the core curriculum and was, you know, in a good place with their students. But there is no definitive line on that. I know our younger teachers are following, and that's what's most important to me at this point. If you're within the first 5 years of your career, you should be following the shell course. You know, you're not a master teacher yet. You don't have the core resources under your belt. And I feel like you should be following along. And that's gonna not only develop your professional toolbox, but also give you a good indicator of where everyone else is moving around you, which is sometimes hard when you're a single teacher in some of our smaller schools. If you're the only third grade teacher, you have no one to necessarily directly communicate with. This is a good place for you to find that communication, you know? So, and again, it's year one. And I feel good about where we are, but we definitely have some places to grow for year two. And then the third strategy was the implementation of the iReady diagnostic, the personalized instruction MyPath, and then the tools for instruction RTI resources. So this is a comparison of our fall 2021 versus our spring 2022. I like this chart because it gives you the total number of students there that are in each of those categories right now as compared to the number of students that were in each of those levels previously from the fall results. I mean, I feel great about this. This is K-8. It's 50%. We're either early on or mid or above. That is a very strong improvement from the fall data. I think the teachers did an outstanding job of implementing all three strategies this year to produce this result. Any questions for this slide? All right. This is the iReady presentation data that they, at the end of each cycle, they'll sit down with me and my math coach, Amy Warnick, and go through all the data, not only from our district level, but compare it to the national data that they're seeing. You know, there were 8 million kids in iReady this year around the nation for mathematics. And you can see that our district data actually is slightly ahead the national year-to-date data as far as the levels are concerned. You do have to be aware that the every district makes a decision on the population they fit in this resource, like the students that they enroll in the resource. We have full population K-8. You know, another district in the state of Maryland might decide that only, you know, 30 to 40% of their students, the ones that are struggling the most. But I feel really good about being able to make that comparison. And if you look at the national norm data from spring 18-19, which is pre-pandemic data, we are not far off of that right now. We're within 9 percentage points of being on target with that, which makes me feel even better. So progress definitely being made. And again, kudos to our teachers.
Right, can you stay there a minute?
Yes. Yes.
As my wife will tell you, I'm always a pessimist.
Yeah.
Okay. The concern that obviously you see there is 9% of students are 3+ grade levels behind. I mean, when you're 2 grade levels, 3 grade levels behind,
What's the plan? I mean,
catch those kids up to get them to want to try to get to grade level. That's as we all know as teachers, those of us who have taught, you know, comes a point in time where the student, family, everybody gives up.
Absolutely. So first of all, to be 3 grade levels or below, you've got to be in 4th grade. So the key for me is third. Everybody's got to be on target or within striking distance, 1 grade level below when you are in 3rd grade, when you exit 3rd grade. If you're in that range when you exit 3rd grade, we have every opportunity, and the student and the family has every opportunity to keep the student on track to meet those goals and to be a student that sticks with us. Right. If you're not on target at 3rd, you enter 4th, and you're 3 or more below. That means you're on a kindergarten level, right? And then that gap just exponentially grows because now it's not getting filled. And every year that passes, and you're gonna see that in the slides that I'm about to hit, as soon as, I mean, that cohort of 3 or more below starts to grow, and it's its largest percentage at 8th grade.
Right.
And I can't, you know, just because it says 3 or more below, that student could be 5 or more below.
Sure, 3 or more, it says.
Yes,
Right.
3 or more. So it's very important to keep that in mind. You'll see in the next couple slides that all of our earliest grades for math data right now look very good for elevating to the next grade level. Every teacher is going to receive a student mathematically this year in a little bit better position. That's just a fact. And that's a fact for ELA, like, because they just got more direct instruction this year. But a lot of the math data in the 1 and the 2 in the kindergarten, they have a greater number of kids exiting on grade level right now, which even with summer slide, they're going to show up next year in a better position. A lot of my messaging to teachers at the beginning of the year will be, let us hit the ground running. It is not a time to kind of start to figure out where we get a feel. No, we need to just start. You are getting students in a more academic ready environment, position, whichever word you want to use, than you did this year. We need to hit the ground running. They're ready. And the kids know the resource right now, right? Teacher knows the resource, student knows the resource. And I think that's an important component too for getting off to a quicker start.
Well, I mean, that's certainly insightful to me. You know, when you look at 50% of the students, 1 grade below,
Mm-hmm.
and then we think about, okay, the tipping point is the 3rd grade entering the 4th grade, then you say to yourself, okay, if we've got, I think it was 190 students or something like that, that were 3 grades or greater below, how do we save that 190 students? What kinds of things can make a difference in that child's life that we can get them within, you know, ballpark by the 5th grade, by the 6th grade, you know, all of a sudden they're in the ballpark somewhere.
Well, I'm very confident. Can I actually move to the next slide? Because I think this would help our facilitate this conversation too. So you can see the drop at the bottom, right? We shrank that from the beginning of the year data by 22%. Those kids that were 2 or more or 3 or more grade levels below. I can pretty much guarantee that any kid that's 3 or more grade levels below was enrolled in RTI from the very beginning of the year. I can't guarantee that for the kids that returned to us that were 2 or more, but I think they were identified, and now we probably most likely have them in. If not, they're definitely enrolled this fall. Okay. So the population has shrunk a little bit for those that need the recovery, that really intensive recovery effort. But also we have this targeted resource now that the teachers also understand from day one. Like learning this, learning how to dig into the data and use the data for direct instruction and implementation took a while. The PDs I'm running this summer, the first 2 hours are just going through all the really granular data that's coming out of the classroom level, so I can help even guide teachers how to make that process even more efficient when they return this year. Like these are the look-fors. And again, my math coach, Amy and Mornick, and I are spending a tremendous amount of time preparing for those PDs, and they're going to be intense, but they're going to be extremely helpful to the teachers. I know they will be, because they're going to make the process even more efficient at the classroom level than it is right now with this data. So, but I do feel like that population has shrunk, and we know going into year 2, those are the targets now. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can also see from this slide that we grew the top of those that were mid or above by a substantial amount. There's only 1% when we returned in the fall. So I feel really good about that. And I'm doing preliminary handicap correlation data right now. And if you are mid or above right now, I can't say too much publicly about the data because it's embargoed, but it looks very positive for your performance on handicap. So K through 5, these are the overall placement results, just broken down for just the elementary. And again, we had greater growth at elementary than we did at middle school. And you can see that the 3 or more that we've discussed a couple times already, it has shrunk down to 3% of our total population. You know, it went from 144 students in the fall at the elementary level down to 39. And that sounds like a very manageable number to me, and I know principals are aware of who those students are. You can get it down to the individual at this point. And then even the 2 grade levels below, my eyes are failing me right now.
87, from 323.
323, went from 323 to 87. So I feel great about that as well, so. This is the data broken down by grade level, and from our conversation earlier, you can see K1, 2, the green portions are much larger. And they, again, that is a position that they will be elevating now to the next grade level. Teachers did not have students come to them that prepared this past fall. So I feel good about starting quickly. You can also see that the 3 or more, again, like we kind of discussed, it starts in 3rd grade here. It's actually probably less than 1%. That's why it doesn't have a number. At 4, it's less than 5%. And then it hits 9% at 5th grade this year. Those students will be elevating to 6. So this is our 6 through 8. And again, to your point, Mr. Woods, like as the gaps become larger, it's harder to get you out of that 3 or more. So this percentage did not move as much. You know, when you look at the student count, it went from 226 students to 151 that were 3 or more grade levels below. So we definitely had some movement up off the lowest performing range right now, but still work to do there. And you're going to see very quickly from this data that a majority of it occurred in 8th grade. We did not have a lot of movement in 8th grade. And that you can see it was 32% in the fall, 32% in the spring that were 3 or grade levels below. And that's to your point that obviously was more than 3 grade levels, which means that, so there are kids that made growth there, just unfortunately their starting point was so far back that they didn't make progress that would affect this data.
Yeah, and the difficulty of the next math expectation.
Oh, 100%.
Much harder.
Yeah.
That becomes the great difficulty when you've got that many students who are that far behind. That teacher that's gonna have their students in the 9th grade has got an incredibly difficult job.
Yes, they do. And I think high school data right now, because there's been a lack of accountability in place, because there's either been a waiver or just all you had to do was participate in taking the exam. So because of that, high school students are well informed, they're highly aware of those expectations, and sometimes they don't perform up to their ability. 8th grade, unfortunately, some very core mathematics was disrupted there in 6 and 7. And they're going to go to the 9th grade now, and expectations are going to be pretty high for that Algebra 1 class. And all of our Algebra 1 teachers are getting together this summer.
This may be a question for both of you, I don't know. Did you ever, if I'm a parent and I know my 8th grade son is 3 and 4 grade levels behind, do they come to you and say, look, he needs to be retained, he's not ready to go to 9th grade? Or do we even have that conversation and say, let's have this conversation. Your son's 4 grade levels behind. Should they be going to the 9th grade?
So,
We have the conversation.
I guess it's the ethical approach to, are we sending them somewhere because of their age rather than because of their ability? You know, there comes that point in time where I think we say we're doing a disservice to the student and the family by saying you are ready to go there. We've got statistical data proving that you're not ready to go there yet.
And that's not just our school system, that's every school
No.
system. Sure, if you look at the amount of students taking remedial math and English in college, I mean, much higher than what it used to be.
Oh, yeah,
And the pandemic
and here's why.
is going to be higher, unfortunately.
The career and college readiness standards, once they are reset through the blueprint, they're supposed to do the research study this year, and then they're gonna set those markers. When a student doesn't meet those targets at the end of 10th grade, they're gonna go on a remediation pathway. That is yet to be determined what that looks like, but there's a little bit more teeth potentially to that than in the past. You know, so if you don't meet those targets, not only is the school system gonna have something in place, but you're gonna have to participate in it, to be able to be a graduate eventually, and be considered career and college ready. So I think that will assist in the process a little bit. I think it'll make people pay attention a little bit more right now. We've gone through 3 assessment cycles where there's been no accountability. So, and everyone's clearly aware of that. So at all levels, right? Parent, teacher, student, school system, board of ed, everybody knows that that's the landscape right now. Until we return to some level of accountability, I think you will continue to see a slide, unfortunately. No. I will say this, that is some very good 7th grade data right there. It is the best in middle school right now, and they will be elevating to 8. So very similar to the conversation, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but those 8th grade teachers are going to inherit a group of kids that really made a ton of progress. 7th grade was the highest performing grade level in the county, as far as overall growth in the iReady personalized pathway. So kudos to 7th grade teachers at both Northern and Southern Middle. So I wanted to share this because this is just the tip of the iceberg of the data that gets associated with the lessons that the students see in iReady. So there were 164,000 plus lessons that were delivered this year, and I cannot stress to you enough. I want to thank all the folks that sat in committee with me in March of 2021 and looked at all the different resources that we evaluated in Google Meets to be able to select this resource and get this in place, because we all agreed we needed something, and we picked the right one, I feel like, in my mind, and got it implemented. And I keep asking myself, where would we be right now without the 164,000 individualized lessons and all the effort and energy that would have had to go into that, just the people power, the teacher power, to be able to prep and plan and pull those resources and deliver that. So, and I like sharing this because a lot of people always say, like, well, how do we know what they're seeing? Or, you know, I told the teachers that every student gets prioritized out of their diagnostic, what that individual student is going to wind up seeing. And you can see number and operations is the most dominant, which is your core mathematical skills, followed by algebra and algebraic thinking, and then measurement data, and then geometry. And as far as like the total numbers of lessons delivered in each one of those domains. I would also like to say that when you look at the passed and the not passed rates, runs true with all the other data you saw tonight. Students in the younger grades did really well, passing a very high percentage of their lessons in every domain. And as kids got older, that's when the not passed rate starts to elevate a little bit. But this data goes a lot deeper than this. Like, I'm going to be able to create top 10 awareness lists for teachers at every single grade level that says, like, these were the top 10 most frequently failed lessons at your grade level. And I'll be able to share that with the current teacher of that grade, but then also for the teacher that's receiving those students. I'll also be able to say, these are the top 10 most frequently passed lessons. And then that should be an indicator. We should be using that data to say, well, these are topics I don't have to necessarily spend as much time on, or I should be aware when I hit this topic, if my students are performing well, I need to be moving along. And that goes back to that pacing conversation, which I was talking about before. One of our PD things that we'll do this summer is we're going to actually ask teachers, what are the top 10 that they feel their students failed? most frequently, and then we're gonna compare it to the real data. To get a feel for, like, their intuition is one thing, but what do the numbers tell you? So I think that'd be a good exercise for them too, to just reflect on the year going by. And then the last thing is, I think economics are important, as Mr. Van Sickle pointed out earlier tonight, to be able to pay for a resource like this. You know, most people don't realize, like, every child sat in my path this year free. It was a pilot. I mean, that was a big windfall for us as a district. The portion that we paid for was the diagnostic, and the tools for instruction, which were the RTI resources. Obviously, that price isn't going to double in the future, but it gets close to doubling, right? But the point that I want to make is this year, we got to think about it over term of life of the contract, right? We had this 12 or 10 months of this resource for free. It came out to 28 cents per lesson for the lessons delivered this year. Next year, it's going to be right around 51 cents. But for 2 quarters, I'll take every one of those lessons because of the amount of time and the energy and the targeting behind that 50 cents. On average, that became 73 lessons completed per student. When you think about the volume, just alone of that, the material they completed. A lot of people were concerned about screen time coming off the pandemic, and the last 2 pieces of this slide are directly related to that conversation because, again, I just want to make it very clear, like, I'm aware of screen time too, all right, but 30 hours per student was what our average was from the 13th of September to the 3rd of June. That comes out to, 5.5 instructional days out of the 180 of the year. And keep in mind, that's spread out over those 180. That is 3% of the instructional time this year. And I think for that 3%, I'll take every ounce of the achievement data and performance data that we got. And again, I think that's important to keep mindful of too. We do need to dial back this resource in a couple locations. I think maybe there was a little bit of excessive time. And then I also have to be mindful that ELA is going to be using the resource as well. I don't want to see fatigue from students and burnout on a resource that I know is efficient. So, and I'm going to be talking to teachers about that you need to, dial it back to a particular range. We can see the same level of achievement because the student came to you in a better location. So, but we do need to be aware of that because we don't want to create our own problem with, like, burning the resource out. And that's it. Unless you have some questions.
Go ahead.
Data, so, quick question. You mentioned the MCAP results, that you have some of that. When do you think that would be available for the board?
So the MCAP data right now is preliminary, which means, like, it's in Pearson access, and teachers, principals, district, we have access to it. It can't be released publicly. I can't share it at a board meeting. But that's something, I can talk with Superintendent Baker, and something that could be shared privately, maybe at executive session. But we have preliminary for math and ELA. And it is, just so we're clear, it is machine scored multiple choice items only at this point, and it is a raw percentage. But like I said, I've been able to take the raw percentage and kind of correlate it to what a child's end of year iReady scale score was. I want to be able to create ranges for teachers that I can share that says that if end of year student gets this in iReady, you can expect it to be within this range on the MCAP. The human scored items from MCAP will not be finished until early fall, and then we won't see scale scores probably until January, unfortunately. So
Always a dilemma.
yeah.
You don't know what to work on.
You can't react.
Until the year's almost finished, it's almost over.
It's been that way.
Well, and when those scores are shared, we won't even get question detail. We won't get subclaim detail. No, we're just going to get scale score. But I have a good indication through that preliminary data. I can tell principals, here's where which cohorts in your building you need to be targeting. And it also helps that behind the scene, we can connect that preliminary MCAP to the iReady, because then I can say, it's no longer a guessing game. Here's what the iReady data tells us about your potential performance down the road. So that's not a guessing game. We can talk, we can have that conversation in September. Yeah.
And
So,
when can we get the information broken out by school?
I can, again, I can upload that and provide that to Superintendent Baker.
And just one more question, and I think I'm done, sorry. So we're testing, are we gonna continue to test 2, or are we gonna move to 3 times a year? As far as the assessment?
So iReady is 3 times a year. It's beginning, middle, and end of. This year, we were September, January, and May. And I would expect those windows to be very similar. And actually, because we're both in the resource now, as far as the diagnostic is concerned, we don't really have a choice in that. It has to occur within the same 30-day window. I think math is going to go first, because it traditionally is a little bit shorter assessment than the ELA, and then ELA will happen. So this year, again, we don't have to learn the resource straight out of the gate. So I think the beginning of year assessment, we won't do it in the first week of school. I want kids to come back in, get settled, be in schedule, and then maybe deliver in week 2, and then as soon as math is finished, ELA will go.
So since we as a board are getting more comfortable, I think, with the data now that we've seen it twice, is it possible to get just the data each time the assessment is complete, and then maybe do a year-end presentation? Because I think a lot of the data that you presented tonight, we understand that. We can get that by the nice charts that you're putting together. We'll be easier for you next year to have similar charts.
Yeah.
So if we can just get the data after each assessment, and then have the year-end of you guys giving us kind of the narrative as far as, here's how we've improved, or here's where we need to make changes, to me, that would be helpful as we continue to look at this resource.
No, absolutely. I think that would, and then if you just have questions after you look at the results,
Absolutely.
we have more than happy to come in and discuss those, but.
Well, that would also be a very good time to focus on the strategies, what we're working on this summer to address it for the following school year, where we are.
Absolutely.
And it's probably a good thing that, Ms. Baker just said that, because my strategies are not changing next year. I want consistency year over year, right? And like I mentioned earlier, I'm bringing Dawn Kane and doing a full PD for slide decks. So anybody that's not a full adopter needs to get on the boat. You know, and same thing with iReady. The proof is in the data right now, performance level data. And teachers are going to be able to see that for themselves and compare themselves to their peers and cohorts around the county, not only at PD over the summer, but also when they return to their buildings and they're going over their school improvement stuff. That's going to be a new kind of landscape, that they can actually see all the data around the county. And I think that helps.
It does.
It makes you, you know, if you're a non-believer, it should change your mind.
Well, and also, if I'm doing something great at one school, and they're doing consistently great at that school, shouldn't I be learning what they're doing at that school that is consistently great? You know, we said that for a long time, that the best people to learn from are the people in this county that are doing a great job at what they're doing.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people that do a great job every day, so follow their lead.
I will say, Amy Warnick and I wrote personal emails to every teacher in the county that had 70% or greater typical growth for the students in their classroom. Every single one. And the teachers were and there was a lot of teachers that reached that target with their students. And they were very thankful for the messaging and that we were so quickly on it and aware of what was happening. I mean, so, and I only hope to do more of that in year 2.
Hope good for every teacher.
Yeah.
So when he does that, the PD and that lady comes up and talks from Calvert County, that's wonderful. Would that be like during school days, so we'll have to get subs for the teachers, or how is that?
No. I scheduled that for the October 14th.
Okay, half day.
Half day. And already have GCC as our location for that. So, yeah.
I don't know if Mr. Gladfeldy has any questions.
Is there any questions, Rodney?
He's popped back up on.
No questions. Good presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a break?
Yes. We're gonna take about a 5-minute break, before the superintendent does her action. Yeah, let's say 5 till, no way, I guess 8 or 9 minutes, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Help yourself.
For the-
I put my glasses on, I'm over. Actually, I don't know how fast it goes.
I can welcome you back to our July 12th Board of Education meeting. We have just a couple more items to finish off the evening, and we're going to move now to the Superintendent's Action Plan, which is our continuing business.
Right.
And Superintendent Baker will give us an update on our action plan.
Okay. So, this is really a progress report of the objectives and the activities on the first, can I manually do it or will I?
Yeah, I turned the timing off, might work.
God, I have to give you a nod.
She may be out of reach.
All right, so the action plan for continuous improvement, including student and staff achievement and the operations of GCPS. And when I delineate the sides of the house, you'll see kind of why I've grouped it into those two things as part of the action plan. But there were several objectives and activities, including specific staff development activities. We've already talked about this evening a little bit through other presentations. Recognizing and managing professional development needs of my staff, my direct reports, and then of course I'll show you on the org chart coming up next, sort of how that flows. Developing a sustainable action plan and then tracking the progress of the goals, establishing a criteria if there are issues that need resolved within the cabinet lead and principals, and then establish a system to ensure accountability, and then develop a robust communication plan. And they're at various stages of progress in each one of these that I will go through briefly tonight, and then we will have a follow-up shortly thereafter, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to see that this is approved whenever there are any changes to the organizational chart for the school system. And then each year, when the approved chart usually goes either in the budget book or on our website. And this is an important, when we talk about a system for accountability, this org chart is followed by the entire, basically the entire school system. Because you'll see that I'm the Chief Academic Officer is a direct report to me, plus the Manager of Communications and Public Relations and my Executive Assistant. And then on that side of the house, which we call the administrative side, these directors directly report to me: Human Resources, Finance, IT, Maintenance and Operations, and then the Supervisor of Food Services. In the other side of the house, the instructional side of the house, there is another step, and that is the Chief Academic Officer, and then all of those folks below either report to the Chief Academic Officer or the person below. So when we're talking about a system for accountability and evaluation, this is how, this is the system that we follow. And we have been working to improve the system, but this is the general rule of thumb for any accountability for these people on our organizational chart. Okay? So if you go to the next slide, the first goal and objective was specific staff development activities, and identify personnel, or myself, superintendent, the chief academic officer, the instructional team, and the administrative team, which is what I just mentioned in the organizational chart. And the steps that I set forth to follow were to be identify those areas of need for career and leadership growth, set goals which align to the school system and personal growth goals, and then match those learning opportunities to training and development for our employees. And if you go to the next slide, the first group that is overseen by the Chief Academic Officer is the lead instructional team, made up of the folks that you see there, including some people that are here in the room. And really, we talk about professional development, and we will be creating a plan, and I didn't include every single director's goals, but we do have them. And through those goals, we set staff development activities, sometimes as a team, sometimes as they come available, but each person sets their own growth goals, then we look at those together, and then we will set professional development activities that meet their areas
of growth. They set some, sometimes I suggest them, and you saw that tonight when both Mr. Schultz and Mrs. Moss were talking about the PD for the instructional side of the house. When we do that, how we land on things that we're going to provide staff development. If you go to the next slide, we're still on specific development, staff development. I have the goals for all of the cabinet personnel and the lead team personnel, okay? I did not include every single person, but it will be part of the overall action plan that I will start to develop for this coming school year. I did include a couple of examples, the first being the Chief Academic Officer. She's out on maternity leave, so she wasn't here to either defend herself or put any input in. But we had several things. She leads the development, this is her goal, leading the development of the school system, implementation plan for blueprint, and then address all 5 pillars to make sure that we're meeting all the expectations for the MSDE and the AIB. And the professional development that she would like to participate in is the technical assistant meetings she's a coordinator, and then of course actively participate in all of the statewide blueprint committees. Another goal she set that we set together, ensure full implementation of ARP ESSA recovery in alignment with the ESSA plan. As you saw tonight, I do feel like we are making significant progress in a number of areas. However, there is still a lot of room for growth in both English language arts and mathematics, but in science and social studies and all of our areas as well. So you can see the goals for professional development that she set. If you look at the last one, implement an updated SIT framework, I believe it was Mrs. Moss that said in her presentation that we are revamping the entire framework for the school improvement plan. So this coming year, we'll have staff development in not only how the plan is laid out, but what will be included and the factors that we want to make sure, as far as they called it the old indicator package for all the scores related. It won't have any of those anymore, but each school will have targeted professional development goals to meet what is in their school improvement plan. I included another instructional person, that is the Director of Special Education, also not here to defend herself. Special education, as we meet with Dr. Mangus, as we look at many of our scores, our students with disabilities has been an area of concern and need for a number of years. And one of the biggest areas of research that shows us family engagement really helps to identify and meet the needs of special education students. So her goals are to maintain or increase the average number of parents who attend events, fully implement CompuPlane. This is the new system that we're going through for billing, and then build and increase capacity. You've heard about specially designed instruction. In there we see providing ongoing professional development opportunities for staff and administrators to, of course, increase overall achievement scores. I think, yes, no, we have one more person that I directly supervise, and that is our Director of Student Services. He is new to the position, but started his second year on July 1st. So his goal is to increase skills and expertise of all of his student services staff. And during the coming school year, he set a goal that 90% of his staff will attend at least 5 different professional training opportunities in the key areas that we have all discussed many times: behavior intervention, restorative practices, and trauma-informed care. Then this leads to an increase in their confidence level in working with students in key behavioral areas. And of course, the goal is to build school-level teams with the support of his entire department. So again, I have the goals from each member of the lead instructional team. I've shown you a couple of examples of the people that directly report to me. The next person, and she is here, Mrs. Moss, actually, if you remember the org chart, Mrs. Moss reports to Dr. Miller, but we work on these staff development goals together, and you can see hers. Implement an elementary literacy coach model with instructional supports to increase fidelity in the delivery of IMSI and ARC programs to a minimum of 65% fidelity as observed in walkthroughs. She already talked about it this evening, that one of the goals is to ensure that our teachers are teaching with fidelity of what we are asking them to work on. Increased 80% the number of teachers completing the letters training, and then high school benchmark assessments in 9 and 10 will be implemented with 100% fidelity. And that is the end of the instructional team. And I've also included a couple of examples from staff development for the administrative team. The administrative team from the organizational chart is the other side that we call the other side of the house. This is the director of HR, director of finance, director of maintenance, operations, facilities, transportation, IT and security, and the supervisor of food and nutrition services. These people are a direct report to me, so I am directly responsible for their evaluation each year and helping them to identify staff development activities that they would like to participate in. Again, I've shown you a couple of examples. The first is our director of HR. Her goal is to recruit, attract, and retain, of course, a high quality and diverse employee workforce by increasing the retention rate by 10% and increasing the overall employee diversity rate by 2%. Now, when you look at increasing the overall diversity rate, we are not a very diverse school system by any means. So it may not look like a very lofty goal to only increase it by 2%, but I think as we do recruiting and as we market Garrett County Public Schools, I think we can look at our diversity and hopefully attract some additional people in our workforce to help build a well-rounded school system, as they say. Build a more robust mentoring program by having 80% of the mentees assess the program and their lead mentor, and enhance the teacher induction program by having 80% of our new teachers and mentors favorably assess the quality of the induction program. This is a very lofty goal because we have increased the best class from a 1 half-day activity many years ago to a 5-6-day induction program where each person does a presentation and we all meet all of our new teachers and try and give them as much support as we can that first week before they start, and then having a mentor work with them throughout the first year and their second year. I've also included another example, our Director of Information Technology and Security, who is here. His goals include reducing the ticket response time, travel costs by utilizing more remote support methods, using our ticket system to measure results, and tracking travel to get to where we need to make adjustments, the way we deploy people. The second one, improve cybersecurity. This is a clear professional development goal to cross-train our groups of people through the admin team, through the instructional team, through principals, through teachers, through principals and their secretaries. Attain industry certification and professional development for online resources. Many of the things in Mr. Gang's area of expertise include industry certification. A lot of cybersecurity, those kinds of things that will enhance and improve his department. So that is the progress on the very first goal, which was the staff development goal. Okay, this one is recognizing and managing my own professional development goals. And my overarching goal is to review the feedback of the elected board, staff, and Garrett County Schools and stakeholders, and self-identify the skills, knowledge, and behaviors necessary to be a highly successful leader of Garrett County Public Schools. And you can see my goals, monitor and assess the goals of each team member, which I'm presenting to you tonight. Review and monitor and assess the goals of each principal through their evaluations. You've heard us talk about that a good bit this evening as well. Monitor and assess the goals of each school improvement plan. Review professional development surveys with the team members to ensure our PD is meaningful, relevant, and timely. That is what our teachers tell us. Sometimes it doesn't apply to them. I think the half days have really helped, and really assessing what they feel their needs are has also greatly helped. And then my own goal is continuing the progress towards the completion of the FSU doctoral program, and I believe I shared previously the timeline for that. Okay, the next one is, number 3 was actively pursuing professional growth. The professional growth plan process has undergone a significant overhaul, which began before the pandemic. Of course, progress slowed a good bit during that time, but is now back on track. Each staff member follows a similar process that you'll see there on the screen. The steps include, but aren't limited to, starting with a self-assessment, setting their own goals, working with me to identify the strategies to meet them, outlining the resources and professional development they need, and then the timeline for completion. And then I put in parentheses each school year for most. The finance team does operate on a little bit of a different timeline when it comes to evaluation and professional growth, because they work through the audit season. And so Director Schweitzer looks at her timeline for completion and her evaluations of her team around the end of September, beginning of October. So that team is on a little bit different timeline, but just about everybody else's timeline is a school year. And I think one of the things that the board has talked about is ensuring that this is happening. When I say that we have a process for evaluation, we have a process for the self-evaluation, for setting goals. This is in the, I know it's a little bit small, you might be able to see it a little bit better on your papers. But you will see that this is in our apps portal on the employee side, and you can see at the top, it has the school year 21-22, so just finishing this past school year. It has my name, and then these are the people that I am directly responsible for completing their evaluation. And it's the org side of the house on the admin side, finance, food, nutrition, human resources, IT, instruction, maintenance, operation, and of course my executive assistant. And so the reason you can ensure that this is occurring is because each person you'll see is in a different, you'll see it a little bit better on maybe one of the next coming ones, but we get an email, or we can go into the app, and then we can see where everybody is on this process, okay? Some folks have set their goals, some folks they're not in there yet, but I've seen them, and then I go in and can evaluate each employee that is listed here. If they're not done, it keeps reminding you to go in and see their goal setting and to make sure that you complete their evaluation. So if you go to the next slide, I broke it down for you a little bit further. Again, Dr. Miller is a direct report to me, and you'll see there it lists me as her supervisor. And of course, I can't show you a screenshot of her entire evaluation, but what I have shown you here is her goal setting is complete, and you can see then it has how we're going to measure each thing, and so there's a lot more to this screen. But again, once the goals have been set, then it sends me a reminder email that I need to go in and make sure to complete her evaluation. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, it is part of the overall instructional team to do the principal evaluations, but you can see there each school is listed, and you can see that each person is sort of on a different area of when their evaluation has been or will be completed. Some are waiting for the principal themselves to finish making comments that they want to talk to their supervisor about. You can see there's a couple that are waiting for me to make some final comments. I worked with Mrs. Ashby. We did an in-person evaluation of all 8 of these principals, and then we go back in and to the app and complete each process. You can see 1, 2, 3, there are 3 principals that the whole process is complete, and then you can see 1 or 2 that either their evaluation is just getting started or the principal has been notified that they need to review his or her own evaluation. So this is a way of making sure everyone is held accountable, because again, it keeps reminding me, these 3 that I have not reviewed yet, I need to go in and review them, make comments, set the goals for the outcome. Okay. And as I said earlier, that has undergone, and thanks to the IT team and the instructional team, that has been a major overhaul in that particular area. All right, so number 4 was developing a sustainable action plan. You can see the goals there. The action plan for instructional improvement is really in the ESSA plan, which is formally the educational master plan. And then part of the action plan will be on the operational side for improvement as well, and you can see the steps there. Assemble a planning team, which of course has been assembled already, reviewing the mission and purpose, providing collaborative work time to review each goal, aligning the goals with the school system goals and of course the board's goals, and engage with stakeholders to review and revise this process. So this action plan, you can see it's only one slide. We will be starting with all of the goals that you saw tonight and developing the action plan for this coming school year. And that will fall in line with their evaluation and fall in line with their goals and fall in line with their professional development that they would like to attend. Okay, if you go to number 5, tracking progress of achievement goals. You can see my overall goal there, and I believe Mrs. Moss referenced it this evening. Beyond data presentation, in which the board receives the scores for various assessments, including all of those things, the goal is to go further and use those scores that are readily available, but really look and drill down at the information regarding the strategies and best practices to improve achievement. And these have been presented to the board throughout this entire school year, and certainly stakeholders as well. And I've listed them there. You can read them on your own. But I did include the dates that we have been focusing on, not just the scores, but also how we're going to use those scores to create achievement. And especially, as you mentioned, Mr. Woods, some of the areas that are of greatest concern coming out of the pandemic, we know there is a lot of achievement goals that we need to reach. This one is a continuation of number 5. And in addition to operating and capital revenue, we receive a number of formula grants. These are all special funds that will help us track the progress of achievement goals, because each one of these grants requires progress reports as we go through. The ESSA plan goals, Dr. Miller and Mr. Edwards are responsible for tracking that progress. The reopening and recovery plan, Dr. Miller and Mr. Hummel are responsible for that. Tracking the progress of the ARP-ESSER goals, that is Dr. Miller again and Mrs. Schweitzer. Tracking the progress of our CTE goals and those programs, that is Mr. Edwards. And then tracking the progress of Title I funding and services, that's the coordinator of Title I, but certainly under Mrs. Ashby's report as well. Number 6. Number 6 is establish a criteria for resolving issues. And you'll see the goal is to develop a consistent, transparent problem-solving process. And you can see the steps. Identify the issue at hand, understand everyone's interest, discuss and use active listening, evaluate the options, come to a consensus on the best option, and agree on potential contingency plans, monitoring, and evaluation. So if I'm measuring my own progress, this does not have a written process. It does not have something that I have gone over with my team. So this, number 6, I'm doing my own self-evaluation on my action plan. This one still needs work as we move through this coming school year. Number 7, establish a system to ensure accountability. And you'll see the goal is to create and enhance an effective system to monitor delegated responsibilities. And you'll see the steps. Assign and review tasks, which of course begins in HR with the job description. Maintain charts of assigned tasks, which we do have. Develop meeting agendas that require input and collaboration. Collaborative technology that monitors progress, frequent meetings to review accomplishments and plan forward, and provide opportunities to present to the board and stakeholders goal progress and/or attainment. So if you look at the progress on this particular goal, one thing that we implemented last year, a couple of years ago, and you'll see on the next slide if you want to go to the next slide, Jeff. What we do is we have a common agenda in our Google Docs, and you can see this is a cabinet meeting. This is the one that we just had last week. And each one of the cabinet members can go in and add topics that they want to talk about at the cabinet meeting. And so that's where we're getting input and collaboration. I believe that we really have presented a number of things to the board this year as far as our goal progress and attainment on our achievement goals. And I do believe that we have a system, as I talked about with the org chart, the evaluation, as a system of accountability. Jeff, if you go to the next one. This, again, on establishing a system to ensure accountability. This also is part of the app that was developed. You can see, I chose Dr. Miller's again. It will give me a notice through the employee.eval, and I go in under Dr. Miller and I review her goal setting. So that will happen as we move towards this school year. We will go in and evaluate anyone that is a report to me and evaluate her goals. Then if you go to the next slide, you'll see that it has, I just chose a principal randomly. Please review Tracy Miller, she's our principal at Grantsville, evaluation and provide optional comments. So I can go in there, see her evaluation, and make comments, consult with Mrs. Ashby on a final score. And this, again, has received a lot of revamping and review to ensure that we are holding folks accountable for the goals that we have set and that they have set for themselves. I think this is the last one, number 8. Yeah. So number 8, a couple of months ago, we did Mr. Green and I did a presentation on the communication plan. You can see the goal was to develop a robust communication plan for internal and external stakeholders, identifying our target audience, social media, our website, newsletter, school messenger, frequent and appropriate. As Mr. Green can attest, a goal that I gave him as when he took the position was I wanted something positive to go out about the school system every single day. I think we're getting to that goal. It's a little harder in the summer, but we have worked very hard to put something positive about the school system, whether it be about a teacher, a student, something exciting that's happening. We have provided training and guidance documents. Mr. Green, we created a style guide, and we have trained all of our end users on our new website before it was launched. If you go to the next slide, track progress of the communication plan. The comprehensive plan was presented to the Board of Education on March the 8th. We have reinstated the board briefing, which is published after each board meeting. We have designed new graphics for press releases, making them shorter, more interesting, having something short for people to just get their information on social media. They don't like to do a lot of reading, they like to have it a lot shorter. We have drafted and submitted several op-ed pieces when the local paper or other publications have had some misinformation. We have developed a process by which we can clarify that for the so that the information is correct. We have started a new Instagram page, and that target audience is our students, because younger folks seem to be on Instagram. And we did launch our new website at the start of the fiscal year, as our target was July 5th, and that was successfully launched. Our next step, we are going to reinstate the school activities calendar that the board received every month. It had activities like awards assemblies and interesting things that were happening. We're going to be reinstating that in the fall. And then we're going to launch a superintendent message at the start of the school year as well. We're kind of looking at bi-weekly, every other week. I shouldn't say bi-weekly, every other week, that we will do the superintendent's message, and Mr. Green has been a big help so far. And Mr. Gang, if you look at the next, as I was saying, you know, we have new graphics and sort of shorter blasts of news. This was just an example. As I stated earlier, our buses are running for summer school. Our food service is now going to be distributed again, and then you'll see the monthly board meeting is publicized there as well on our new website, which is searchable, which is nice. Our old one wasn't as user-friendly, I don't think. This one does have a way to search, which is much better. You can go to the next slide. It's just a picture of our new website. Right there is the landing page. I just took a screenshot. You can see that most school system websites have the tabs at the top, which I think are shorter and much more user-friendly. It goes through a series of positive things on the website. It's a lot more user-friendly, I think, Mr. Green, to make it web accessible for people with disabilities. That was one goal that we had when we selected Blackboard as our vendor. And then the final slide is just questions, and thank you for allowing me to present progress on the various topics and goals of the action plan.
Thank you.
I went through it really fast, so
just for those of you that, you know, are watching, this is a part of the superintendent's evaluation process, and we've asked for this information. We'll be using this information as we do the evaluation, within the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. We'll get an evaluation together, with, the items that we may want to see and things that we may want to ask her to work on the upcoming year as well, and then we'll meet with Superintendent Baker and go over that evaluation process. So this is the first step that we have towards the evaluation process. Okay, Superintendent Baker's not finished yet. She still has a voice left.
I do.
She's going to go to the last item that we have, and that is an updated timeline of the Southern Middle Renovation Project and grade band proposal. As was noted in a press release, there was no presentation tonight in public session in terms of Grimmel Parker making a presentation or the school system making any type of presentation. But I did ask the superintendent to update the general public on an expectation timeline and what to expect in the upcoming months. So it's not enough.
Okay, thank you. And this memo will be on our website, in case I go through it quickly and you miss anything. But I know we have been having meetings with Grimm and Parker, and I know they are trying to incorporate a lot of the community feedback that they've gotten. We re-advertised the site again, I believe it was yesterday, that we're looking for feedback and certainly information from stakeholders. And I know Grimm and Parker is working very hard to take that information and incorporate it into their August presentation. But until that time, and I'll just hit the highlights from this memo that will now be on our website. But kind of a review of what's happened so far. In June, on the 24th, we held a collaborative meeting with Garrett County Schools, Grimm and Parker, the architectural firm, the Interagency on School Construction, the IAC, and we discussed several points, including the proposed capacity of Southern Middle, the proposed grade band model of pre-K to 6 and 7 through 12, the blueprint requirements for 3-year-old students, you've heard that mentioned several times this evening, the Maryland Department of Planning enrollment projections, which we've also talked about at length, and the capacity of our adjacent schools, which currently are Yockley and Crellin. Swan Meadow is also an adjacent school, but it follows a little bit different grade bands, so that's why Crellin and Yockley are listed as adjacent schools. On July 6th, I reviewed with my cabinet the number of spaces, such as classrooms, offices, etc., that were outlined by Grimm and Parker. And as I stated a few minutes ago, currently Grimm and Parker is taking all of that feedback from the community meetings that were held prior to the board meeting on June 14th when the board had a number of questions, and the IAC meeting on June 24th. And they will be performing all of their work that they've done so far. They've been performing the work, and they will present that to the board at the August 9th, 2022 board meeting. I think our goal is to keep that agenda that evening relatively light so that the board will have plenty of time to ask questions of Grimm and Parker and GCPS staff, that evening of August 9th. Grimm and Parker has completed existing condition assessments at Southern Middle currently and Southern High School, including architectural, civil, structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. They have reviewed existing drawings for Southern Middle School and Southern High School, sort of where everything is currently located. The development of Southern pre-K to 6 school programs. There's been several meetings with GCPS staff and the IAC to further discuss capacity and programs at a Southern pre-K to 6 school with Grimm and Parker. And they have developed schematic designs for a Southern area pre-K to 6 school and Southern High School project. They've developed possible schemes for what a pre-K to 6 school might look like, and further development of Southern High Schools to accommodate the 7th and 8th grade students, should that be the way the board would like to go. The next steps in the timeline, Mr. Wazlowski has requested a draft from Grimm and Parker to be reviewed by the Executive Steering Committee, and that entails myself, my cabinet, and the principals of Broadford, Southern Middle, and Southern High School, and we've scheduled that for August 2nd. Mr. Green will continue to communicate via press releases and various media blasts that solicit community feedback. As I said, that went out yesterday. That will continue to go out through social media and other means to continue to request feedback on the proposed plans. There will be a formal presentation by both Grimm and Parker and Garrett County Public Schools at that August 9th board meeting. We've set a tentative community feedback session for stakeholders to again collect any community feedback. August 23rd at 6 p.m. We can certainly change that. And then finally, September 13th, that's when we will be asking for a vote of adoption of the first phase of the plan, should that be the way the board would like to go. That's the updated timeline. Any questions on what we've been working on for the last month or so?
At the end, it says full presentation by GP and GCPS at our August 9th board meeting. Do we know what that location will be for our August 9th meeting?
We have scheduled, I believe, Mr. Woods, we have scheduled that on Dennett Road. And I think Mr. Gang has already been informed of that, so he will be preparing for that live streaming from Dennett.
As well as in September.
Right, and September.
Both those meetings will be a larger venue.
Right.
Okay. And then for the tentative community feedback, stakeholders, August 23rd at 6 p.m. Is that tentatively at Dennett Road also?
We have not set a location for that, but we'll check and make sure and see what's open, but we will make an announcement, make sure that's highly publicized on where that meeting will be.
Well, Grimm and Parker, I mean,
Well, Grimm and Parker will be coming, or at least.
To the community feedback session,
Mhm.
right.
I believe at least Mr. Wolf will be coming, yes. Because we did speak to him and make sure his schedule would accommodate, a meeting late August. So we thought that would be a good time. So we have at least a couple of weeks after the August 9th presentation, and then a couple of weeks before the September meeting. So we kind of tried to hit somewhere right in the middle.
So it says September 13th, Board of Education, vote on adoption of the first phase of the plan. When will we know what the first phase of the plan is? Will that be presented at our August 9th board meeting?
Right, I mean, yes, formally of what we would be presenting, yes, but we've been presenting it all along, though.
Yeah, I think what you're asking is, will you make a formal, request at that time as to this is the plan we're asking you to look at next month to bring back for a vote?
Yes, so that's clear. It'll be brought to August 9th, so then the public community who are watching, then if they want to give comments, they can, give comment feedback August 23rd.
And we have a site where they can also, and that also goes to Grimm and Parker when we get community feedback via the website, via the process.
So then it'll be out for approximately a month and two before we have to vote on
Correct.
the first phase of the plan.
Right.
I just a few more.
No, you go right ahead.
It says on July 6th, Superintendent and her cabinet review the number of spaces, in parentheses, classrooms, offices, et cetera, outlined by Grimm and Parker. So is that referring to what, Southern Middle, Southern High?
Both,
Both, okay. That was my question.
mostly right now, Southern Middle, because that will have the, of course, the major renovation. So we were looking at, it's similar to the activity that, well, not similar, but, we had the activity at one of the stakeholder meetings where, we broke into groups and sort of moved classrooms around of what would make the most sense. So Grimm and Parker took that and then developed some very rough schemes of what that might look like. And so we really reviewed, okay, what would make sense for where pre-K and K and 1? Would that be like an early childhood wing? Where would we put behavior, the STARS classroom? Where would the guidance suite be? Where would the health suite be? So we really took sort of their rough draft and kind of analyzed it as a cabinet team, so that we would have as much information that we can present to you on August the 9th.
And then under Grimm and Parker, I've completed, one of your bullets, several meetings with GTPS and IAC to further discuss capacity and programs at the Southern pre-K through 6 schools.
Right.
Were those mostly in person, or were they conference calls, or what were they?
No, the IAC is based in Baltimore, so they are conference calls.
Okay.
Zoom, Google Meet, whatever.
Okay. My other question, let's start at the bottom more though. On June 24th, 2022, your last bullet, capacity of adjacent schools, and that says York, Glade, and Crellin. You were saying something about,
Swan Meadow?
yeah, what's it, explain that
Right,
again.
Swan Meadow already doesn't have the same grade band, so they are a K to 8 school.
Uh-huh.
So we really, as we were looking at adjacent schools, we really were concentrating on the 2 schools that have a similar grade band alignment to the current Broadford Elementary School. It doesn't mean that Swan Meadow wasn't included in that capacity analysis, but we haven't really been comparing them to, what we have at Broadford, because the grade band is different, so different.
So would you look at the capacity, like, if this went through, that York, Glade, and Crellin could hold 6th grade? Is that what?
Right, that's exactly right, yes. Where, where would those grades be? Would we have the capacity at both of those schools for the plan?
Last question.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Okay,
All right.
well, we look forward to August 9th.
Before you know it.
Yeah, thank you for letting me do that update.
Sure. Student member report. What's going on in schools right now?
Yeah, a whole bunch written on paper.
So with GCASC, we have been in contact in like a group chat over messages. We have appointed staff members for the positions of parliamentary historian, director of public relationships, and an assistant director of public relations. And we started discussing ideas for possible autumn glory fundraisers and t-shirt designs. And we have also begun to look at the Constitution tool and for amendments we're wanting to implement. And then when it comes to statewide bobs, I've actually been in a group chat with different student members of the boards from different counties. So far there hasn't been much talk in the actual group chat, but multiple people have said that they're getting in the coming weeks. And then, like Barb said, the MAVE is hosting their student member of the board orientation on August 4th from 9:30 to 2:30 that I will be attending.
Very nice.
The members, now local student council, the members of Northern Student Council have been communicating to plan more activities for student morale and involvement in the student council. And as student council president for the southern end, I've started to think of different fundraising ideas and other activities to present to the council when we return. And in previous years, we have hosted like blood drives to help donate blood. And I'm hoping to do 2 this year, 1 in the fall and 1 in the spring. We usually get a lot of volunteers for that one, so we just have to make sure they don't interfere with sports schedules.
Right.
But I also started to create an informational presentation on like the role of SMOG, and I hope to share that later in the year to get more student awareness of the position, as well as hopefully more involvement in later years. And then just general student updates. Many students are enrolled in Garrett College summer classes right now, and most AP students received their scores from AP tests last week, so.
They're all got those.
Yeah.
Results. Very good results in both schools. So, that's we've had for a while.
Did any of your, close friends or friends attend the, high school summer programming that was held at the college? Did you have any friends that attended that?
Not that I know of, no.
Just curious if you had any feedback.
That was the first time I've actually heard of that program.
Okay. All right. I'll find out another way, but thank you for answering, I appreciate it.
I think it would be important, Alexis, as you have your group chats with your own friends, I'm sure, that as many students as possible, or some students at least, it's important for them at Southern High School, either come to the meeting that we're saying that we may have in August to talk about grade banding changes.
Okay.
It's important to hear what their thoughts are about 7th and 8th graders coming to the high school. I know Leah presented some information to us about the thoughts that she had gathered, but it would be important for some people to come to that meeting and just say, you know, whatever.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely put that out there.
It's good information for us to hear.
Sounds good.
Any other?
I didn't realize that some of the other student board members in other counties aren't sworn in yet. Do they start when school starts then?
Most of them have been starting actually this month is when they did it, yeah. So most of their first meetings are the July meetings.
You'll have to let us know how you like the training too.
Yes, definitely.
Will that be in person?
It's virtual.
Virtual, okay.
Yeah. I'm excited for it though.
Very good.
Anything else, Alexis?
I'd encourage you to take advantage of the May training on student members of the board. I think that's coming up in August, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we said she's gonna attend.
Oh, good, great. You know how,
I do want to do one little bit of a cleaning up and clearing up, since Mr. Wisłowski wasn't here tonight to kind of lead us through that process. We did have two bids for the collection of sanitation collection, yeah. There were two bids, and we did award the bid tonight to Perry Sanitation in the amount of $69,415.20. We need, been told we need to make that part of the public record. So that is who the bid was awarded to.
the low bid.
Being said, there's an informational item. The federal government gave everybody an IRS rate change. Begins, I guess, July 1. Is that when it begins, Allison? July 1. So there's an informational item in your packet. That being said, any board member updates or anything board members want to share? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Jason. Seconded by Matthew. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,